right, my friends. Welcome to another session of HubSpot Admin HUG. If you have never joined us before, thank you for coming and hanging out with all of us today. This is your housekeeping page. You can come here and get links to all of the amazing resources that you are offered as a HubSpot admin. When you come here, if you go to the upcoming events, these are the events that we have running for the next couple of weeks. There are a couple holes that we're going to fill for you. Today, we're going to be talking about flexible CRM. Next week, data gaps. And then on the third, beyond first touch, building that attribution in HubSpot. So there's a bunch of events. Make sure you're going and getting those on your calendar as soon as you can. We are in the midst of possibly changing platforms here. So get them on your calendar. And as soon as we have some updates on that, I will make sure to share them with you. All right. If you miss an event, we do have those recorded. You can go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, those notifications as soon as they show up. All of those videos are here. You can check those out. I think we've got over 200 ready for you to take a look at. Those resources that are available to you do have a member page. Just go to adminhug.info/member and you can go and get all of those things. There's any amazing resources like the ones that came from the event last week. Those are all posted there for you to take a look at. We also have a space on LinkedIn for all of you and being a part of that. We have a lot of great things that happen there. Check that out as soon as you can. Get the Admin HUG as part of your profile on your LinkedIn. We have a wonderful group over on LinkedIn as well that you can go, posting resources there as well. My computer is really slow today. We have a space on the SWAT community. And then we are going to be doing a show and tell on the 24th of February. Get your submissions in. This is a very quick form. All you need to do is go in and post that information. Let us know what you want to share, and we will gladly bring and share all of your amazing awesomeness with the rest of the HUG. We have boot camps that happen with HubSpot. Go ahead and check those out. If you're having any issues, check out the troubleshooting. Turn it off, turn it back on again, shut your windows down. That seems to work for all of us. And then we have this form for you. If you've got an idea for a HUG, we do these every single week. We love to hear what you want to know and what you want to learn about. Make sure you Kyle and I look at those every single week. So if you're submitting those, we are taking your ideas into consideration. Make sure you're connecting with myself, with Kyle, and with the rest of your HubSpot admins every single week. And we will kick it back over to our friends. Thanks for joining us. I can't wait to hear all about the flexible CRM views. Lily, Zita, Harrison, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Deanna. Hey, everyone. My name is Lily Rosenbloom. I am a senior product manager, and I work on the CRM. And today we're going to talk about flexible CRM views, which is something that myself, the two other PMs I'm joined with, and our teams have been working on for the last year. And our goal with flexible CRM views was to create a focused, easy to use CRM index page that brings together a streamlined UI and new visualization types that really empower you all to be able to answer questions and take action. So for today, what we're going to do is just a high-level overview of flexible CRM views themselves, the why behind the work. Most of our time is going to be spent doing a deep dive into some of the new features released and the new visualization types themselves that you all have access to. But don't worry, we will definitely be leaving tons of time at the end for Q&A. So please be sure to drop questions in there, upvote the ones that you want to make sure we get to, yeah, send them all throughout, in demos, chats, etc. But I will be kicking us off with kind of an overview of flexible CRM views. Our goal here was really, we wanted to make HubSpot easy to use while still ensuring that contextual, meaningful data is right at your fingertips. Flexible CRM views is currently slowly rolling out to all of our customers. You probably already have it enabled in your portal if I know the audience here. It's available for all plans. And if you don't already have it, I've included the link here. We'll include it in resources afterwards, but you can enroll at any time as well. And with this work, we really wanted to design flexible views so that you can visualize data in a way that you find most helpful. Sometimes viewing that data in a helpful way is via a table. Sometimes it's a board. But maybe you actually need a different way to work with your data, a calendar, a Gantt, a report. And the goal with flexible CRM views is that there's no need for technical knowledge, reporting chops for you to be able to just get relevant insights on your data that drive results. Okay, so quick overview of that, but let's get into the fun stuff with the demo. So in addition to working on the overall index page, I also work on our table team. So we're going to start with demoing that. As a quick refresher, in case you've been living in our new world for a long time, this is what the old index page looked like. And in our new flexible CRM views, we have a much more streamlined UI. Some of the favorite things that I love about the overall page layout are things like you can tuck away your filters when you don't need them, or you can preview your record inline rather than on top of the table. So it's not like covering information that you might need to easily see. One of the other very simple but really exciting updates is that you can double click into your views and easily rename them, but you also have access to be able to clone, manage, sharing, and delete those views. And an interesting data point, I think, something that I look at as a PM, is the increase in view deletions that we've seen as a result of this, simply because this action was hidden much further away. And now you can easily just kind of like clean up your views. Those are just some of the cool things I love about the overall page IA, but we added a ton of stuff to the table as a part of this release as well. Some simple things like a contextual menu that allows you to add a column right in line rather than needing to actually click the edit columns. So here, let's see, maybe we want to just like really quickly add amount. I can do that, and I can also just remove it right away. We've added some settings within the table as well. So if you want to kind of default and adjust your pagination, you can. One of my favorites, and I think for folks here that like to look at a lot of data, is you can adjust your data density to look at it so you can see more within one pane. And you can add zebra striping to make it just much easier to be able to scan that data. Pop back over to just default for our demo. Let's see, a few other exciting things that we have added here is column insights. This allows you to run an analysis specifically on the column of data you're looking at. So in this scenario, we're looking at our deal owner. Oh, sorry, Kyle, it looks like I deactivated you in our account, but he's still in there owning some. And what it's doing is running an analysis in the background and giving me some key insights that can help me understand my data a little bit more. What it's calling out here, I don't have a very, clearly I don't manage my data super well because a majority of my deals actually are not assigned to an owner. So as maybe an admin in my account, that might prompt me to be like, I need to go and find those unassigned deals, make sure that they're assigned appropriately. It's also calling out that Jeff is one of the owners with nearly double and maybe it's a disproportionate workload. So there's some really cool insights that you can glean just by going into your contextual menu and running those insights. The last addition to our table is, let's go and look at one with a little bit of data, is the ability to add conditional highlighting. What this does is it adds just a gradient to your data set. So let's start with this one, which is going to kind of go from green to red. This allows me to really easily scan and see any outliers in my data. So I am really able to kind of just quickly see, okay, here I have some deals with a really low probability, and I can even add it to multiple columns and start to look at that discrepancy. So this deal right here that Jerome owns, the deal probability is 20%, but it's actually one of the higher amounts. So as a sales manager, I might want to kind of dig in and understand why is that deal probability so low with a amount very high. So the conditional highlighting just allows you to kind of like quickly scan and grok that data and then take an action on it. Those are just a few of the exciting updates that we added to the table. And as a quick teaser for things that we are working on and coming soon, we are working on the ability to filter by your column header itself. So within the contextual menu, you'll be able to just simply click and say filter by this property and select a value, rather than needing to go into the overall filters panel or even the advanced filters one. Another one that I think the crew here is going to be excited about is we are building out an inline association table. So I would be able to look at my deals and then expand out to look at the associated records that are showing. That allows you to easily see an action on your associated records within the context of that primary. So those are just a few of the exciting updates that are coming this year that I thought folks on here would be keen to hear about. But looking forward to seeing your Q&A. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Zita, to talk about the board and the Gantt and the calendar.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily. So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. All right. You guys can see that, right?
Looks good.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Lily. So I am Zita, and I'm also a product manager here at HubSpot, and I work on Gantt view, board view, calendar view, and pipelines as well. So I'm going to show a little bit of a demo for the 3 views that I own, and ask questions in the Q&A, and we can circle back to that. So board view has historically been around for quite a while, but with the latest Flex Views experience, we've really made quite a few usability improvements and functional improvements that I think will help you in your day-to-day as you work with the view. And I just want to preface that these changes that we've made to board view apply to all the different object types that you can view a board view for. So whether that be deals or projects or tickets or services. So as you look at the board view, you'll see that it looks far more modern. And in case you aren't aware, the way that you would get to board view from the table view that Lily was on is you would just switch in the switcher here. And one of the big things that we did is especially modernize the cards and change how the information is displayed on the card. So they're displayed in these totally customizable sections. So there are actually 6 different kind of types of data that you can display on your cards now. You can display properties related to the deal, object tags, information about the priority and urgency, information about associations, information about previous and next activity, and also quick actions. And so you can see those here on this card, for example. One of the cool things about the quick actions that we really like is that they keep you contextually working on the board view, but allow you to do things in other parts of HubSpot. So you could create an email and write it right from here, or you could add a note directly from here, or also go into the AI insights. The way you would actually customize this view is by clicking on this cog button here. And there are a couple different settings. And down here under card setup, there's this kind of new experience for where it says for myself or for everyone. So if you are an admin or owner of a board view, you can click on for everyone and customize your cards and board view such that the changes you make will apply to everyone who's looking at that view. And this is really helpful if you're managing board view for other users or teams. And you want the information and the way people see and interact with the view to be consistent. So I might, for example, decide that I want to display a different property and that we want to see the priority on cards. And then maybe instead of creating a note, you want to let them create a task, right? So you can customize all of these things, press save, and that will change on the card. And sometimes you do have to refresh for the settings to kick in. So don't be surprised if that's the case. But you see now it says create a task. And then at the same time, the other neat thing is that you can choose to edit settings for just yourself on that view. So if you want to tweak what the admin has set for you, but you want to, for example, display additional, you can display up to 2 additional properties for just yourself so that you can work efficiently, you have that option. So you can make some tweaks to the view just for yourself. And if you're an admin, you can make tweaks to the view for everyone. So that's one of the cool things that we did in this Flex Views experience is we really enhanced settings around board view. And then one of the other things I want to call out that people have found very helpful is we introduced kind of group, like the ability to change the grouping on the board. So generally people group on board by pipeline or pipeline stages, right? So each lane in board view is associated with a specific like deal stage. And now you can select almost any property associated with that object. So actually now you could group by deal owner, for example, and you could see work broken down into the different people who own those deals, or you could do it by type, or you could do it by team, right? Basically any property that's in this list, which is the majority of properties, like properties that have a finite number of options, you can group by those and see your information broken down that way. So those are some of the enhancements we've done, in addition to just things like introducing infinite scroll. So you'll see that as I'm scrolling in the view, it keeps loading the information. If you've been on HubSpot for a while, you might know that there used to be a show more, load more bottom at the button at the bottom of lanes, which wasn't great. So we've gone ahead and improve that. And then we've also done a lot of work to improve drag and drop and the experience associated with that, making it snappier, although I have to switch back for this because I have pipeline rules. So here, if I switch back to stages, you'll see that if my rules are allowing me, yep, okay, there we go. You can, sorry, I have too many rules on this board, but the drag and drop experience has been improved. So I would recommend playing with that and experiencing that as well. And with that, we will switch to talking about Gantt view. So Gantt view, I'm actually going to show you that for the project object. Here we go. So I don't know if everyone on this call has had the opportunity to see the new project object, but if you haven't, it was recently released to GA and it's available on all tiers, and you should definitely check it out. It's a really cool object because it ties in really nicely with tasks. And I'll show you, for example, this project here has 4 tasks. And so you can see the Gantt view, which Gantt view is really great for visualizing date-based work on a horizontal timeline like this, like with time across the top. And it's really great for being able to see what projects or tasks, for example, are in flight at the same time, what work has been completed or still needs to be completed, who owns what work and what team is working on it. So on this view, you'll see that the left is kind of like a table and the right is the visual. There's a lot that you can do. You can customize the view, just like Lily pointed out. You can add columns and delete columns right here in line to customize which columns appear. You can change their width for the columns and for the whole pane, so you can really maximize how your data shows up on the left. And then you can edit data directly in line, just like table view, to work contextually on this view. You can see all of the tasks associated with the project. You can click in to see the details of a task and make edits to the task right here on the page without needing to go anywhere. You can even add tasks right from here. And then you can see which tasks have been completed. You can choose to complete them, yay, when you complete a task. And you also have access to filters on the view, just like all the other views, and you have a special filter for task status. And we have some additional task statuses that are coming out of the box to help you organize your work. So this view, very helpful for, oh, I should point out the best part of the view is that you can actually drag and drop to edit your dates for your work or shift things entirely for both tasks and projects. And this view is available for deals, services, and projects. So definitely take advantage of this view and the new projects object if you haven't yet explored them. And this view is really great, like I said, for visualizing your work. Another great view for visualizing your work is calendar view. So that'll be the last thing I cover. I'm going to switch back to deals for that just because of the data, but you can switch down here to calendar view. And I'm actually going to look at my calendar view by close date. So I want to see all of the deals that are closing in the month of January. And this is a pretty standard calendar view in the sense that it solves pretty standard calendar use cases. So one of the neat things is you can switch by looking hourly at how things are, or you can switch at looking at more of that week level, like week across the top, hourly across the bottom, or the standard kind of classic 30-day grid, if you're familiar with that. And just like the other views, you can click to open the details of a deal or whatever object you're looking at and make edits right from here. You can also click to launch the record. And probably one of the coolest things about this view is that we show you specifically records like deals that don't have dates associated with them. And the reason this can be super helpful is it can kind of help ensure that you're keeping your data like clean and assigning dates to work that needs to have dates. So here are 2 deals that, for example, I haven't given dates to, and I would, ideally go ahead and put a close date in here. And then when I refresh the view and look at, all deals, it should show up somewhere in this list. I don't know what date it was, maybe here. So this is a really great tool for kind of seeing things in that 30-day grid, or that kind of step away to see what are all the things happening on a specific day, maybe across different teams, or for myself, you can filter down just like in all the other views to see work that's just related to you. So those are some of the new flexible view enhancements we've made. And with that, I'll hand this off to Harrison to talk about reporting.
Perfect. All right, let me get the screen up. I think you might need to end first, Zita. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All righty. There you go. That should work. Hello, everybody. Okay, so I want to talk about reporting. So, hi, I'm still Harrison. I'm invading this space a little bit with reporting, and reporting has kind of invaded the CRM lately. So I wanted to dive through a couple of those things. Now, the first one, I saw a couple mentions of it actually already in the chat that I wanted to talk about, is the metrics section up at the top. So this has been here for a while. Many of you probably think of this. It used to be called Deal Insights, and I will be the first to admit that there are too many things named Insights in HubSpot, so we're trying to fix that. So instead, I wanted to call it what it actually is, which these are metrics. Now, as I mentioned, it started in the deals space, and it used to not be flexible or customizable at all, right? So you could like go into deals and you'd see a couple numbers at the top, and like that was that. But obviously, we went past that point to say, hey, let's get this on all of our kind of core objects. That's where we started with. So we have contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. CCDT is the acronym that gets used all the time in HubSpot, which we have too many acronyms, but it's fun. So with that, I mentioned these are customizable. Some of you are going to immediately say, no, Harrison, I can't customize these. What are you talking about? And that's because you're looking at a default view. And so if you come in here and you look at a default view, and then you look here, and if you didn't read this, it says it's a default view. It can't be modified. Now, we are taking feedback. If you'd like to see that to be able to be modified, please let us know. We're thinking about that exact thing. And then the other piece, I know there's a lot of questions always of like, can we have this on all of the objects? We're also super into that. But again, I'd love to know a little bit more feedback. Like, what should some of those base things be? What should I see there? But the big piece is that you can come in and you can start to like modify these and do some fun stuff with them. So let's go back over here. And so in this case, I just open up the settings, and what you're going to see is this little select your metrics UI. Now, how this works, if you think about kind of what a metric is you need kind of an aggregation, and then you want some filters. And so if we come in here, you can see like I made one really simple right here. So this is, I want to say like the count of contacts owned by me created in the last 7 days. So if I'm going to come in here, we can see like, here's all of my list of little metrics. You can have up to 6. You click on the pencil, and here's that. Now, obviously, the aggregation in this space is really, really easy. It's just kind of contacts. But then I can also put my name, and then this is where the magic is. And I'll admit, we're kind of playing with this UI a little bit. I'd like to make this magic a little bit bigger. It's a bit hard to find. But if you open this up, you have this little filter experience. And what's super cool about this filter experience is you can have these filters, and they operate kind of under the lens of that kind of overall filters that are sitting on the page that you're looking at. So if I come back here, you can see in this space, if I open up my filters tab, I am HubSpot team is known, create date is last year. Then if I come into this space, I had, okay, we still went on top of that and did another layer of created in the last 7 days. So you can kind of like layer filters here to get those right numbers. Where is this like super helpful? For instance, if you wanted to have like a view of your team, and then wanted to have a couple metrics for like different numbers from different teammates, that's totally, totally possible. You could totally have like, I just want deals or contacts owned by Harrison, contacts owned by Kyle, contacts owned by Zita, all within, let's say, one team view. And so that stacking of filters, I think, is one of the most like helpful pieces about kind of pulling these together. And you can create some pretty wild filters if you come into this space, right? Because this is just all the normal filtering capabilities. So if you want to filter in on certain companies, if you want to filter on associations, if you want to filter in on obviously any of the properties that exist, and this is a crazy, crazy portal, so there's way too many properties, you can do that and you can kind of build these little aggregations. Now, one of my favorite things about that, though, is if you are going to do that, so let's say I'm going to go over to this view. Now, we don't have any kind of base filters on this one. So obviously, there is way too much data here. And so if we come in and look at all of this, I have that same little kind of metric grid, context owned by me created in the last 7 days. Well, now with a single click, I can pull up just that context. So it also kind of acts like a really quick way to see filters and kind of see exactly that little setup you want without having to leave your view. So I know sometimes you may have a view that's just sitting there as like a single, hey, I just want to be able to check this, maybe check this off the list, but it's not really something you use all the time. I find that to be a really helpful way. And like, let's say, perfect example of this is like context missing owners, right? I want to be able to see that, but I don't need a view 24/7 because usually this is going to sit at 0. So great, just throw it up as a little metric on there. And now when you need it, you see it's a 1, great, you can click in on that and see what's going on. But for the most part, it can just sit there as a single little metric and really kind of save you a lot of space. So that's a really lovely way to use that. All right, now I mentioned we're invading reporting. Reporting is invading CRM, I should say. And so the second thing I wanted to talk about is the report view. And so you kind of saw this sneaky come up in the view type selection. Now, in this case, I'm just going to open this up and click over to report view. And what you're going to see load in hopefully should feel a little familiar. If it feels a little familiar, that's on purpose, because over in kind of dashboards land, we have this like report viewer. This is a screen that when you click into here, it kind of opens up like a focused view on that report. That's exactly the same kind of functionality we're bringing here. Now, we did try to make this a little simpler. So again, as you're thinking about feedback that we'd love to hear, I'd love to know what other reporting capabilities need to be brought in here. I know when I've talked to folks about this previously, and I guess I'm leading the witness right now, but it's like, could we do cross-object reports? Like that could be really fun. But all of these different pieces of like, what are those kind of reporting features that you need in the CRM just to make your life easy, reduce those clicks, be able to navigate a little simpler. But now that I'm in here, one, just right off the top, like it's nice to just be able to get some aggregations. My favorite kind of way to think about this is if you're looking here, we'll go back to the table view. And again, super fast to swap between these. If I asked anyone to say like, hey, can you give me all of the totals by contact owner? Like that's really hard to do in a table just by looking at it. But in like one little click, I can come over here. And obviously, I didn't have it on team, but let's say I was looking at team, you can get all those aggregations just super, super quickly and have kind of that like tabulated data just to understand, hey, what are the counts that I'm looking across this? If I'm trying to diagnose an issue, if I'm trying to find different kind of like little pockets of data, I find sometimes it's just a lot easier visually to look at that. So let's pop back over here. I want to give a couple more examples of that. So in this case, let's go, okay, let's say we're looking again at this. Tons and tons of data in this view. Is like 1.5 million contacts. We can see that up there. If I come over to report view, what we can see is obviously crazy, crazy amounts of data. So let's pop this over and let's say, something as simple as like a really easy pivot chart. And this is the type of stuff that I find to be like, honestly, very simple, but probably one of the most like powerful use cases for this is I know so many of you are sitting in Excel all the time building pivot charts to be able to understand data and just be able to get a quick view of like, hey, what are our numbers across all these things? So if I want all of my count of contacts just quickly tabulated for me, I can come over here, just leave it in kind of table report view. And it's a really nice way to kind of look across this. Or if I want to come down here, I could go through obviously any of these properties and change that. But let's say I wanted to do that by team. I don't have that on this one. I wanted to note here, if you want to add a property to these drop downs, what you do just to try to keep these really lockstep is you actually do it on the table. So I'll come back over to the table. I'll use that really, really easy space of doing it with the right click add. If I add team, so now we have that team column in here. If I go right on back over to the report view, now that property is going to be available for me to click. And now I can kind of get those quick aggregations. Super, super fast, super easy. And then I know I talked fast and I'm going through a ton of content, so I wanted to say one last thing. the last piece I wanted to mention here is tables are not good at showing things over time. That's like one of the roughest parts about when you're trying to look at something. And oftentimes the data you're trying to understand is about trends, right? You want to say, hey, how is this thing moving? And there's something going weird, which many of you have a ton of kind of latent context about how your business is supposed to operate. And oftentimes that's things like how many of X happens over X period of time. And there's a bunch of very, very complex logic in all of your brains that can instantly suss out these weird little problems just by looking at a chart. Now, again, I think many of you have those charts already set up and can go look at them. But to make that really simple, again, coming over and just swapping this to a line chart, having a date-based dimension, and we immediately just start to get into trends of these things. If I want to come down and look at this like by month, I can do that. I can see that something happened in July 2024. So we should look into that. And again, I can click into here. And what I love is this is that same exact table that's sitting on your normal index page. So you can come in here and make quick modifications. And again, probably notice, I agree with you, Josh, to probably that import, but you could come and maybe make those small tweaks without ever leaving. And so that's the type of stuff that I think is just so nice, is those little quality of life improvements, making things a little quicker, making things a little smoother. And so these are a couple of use cases I absolutely love, but obviously we wanted to give a bunch of time for questions. I think we went through a ton of content, and I think there's already like a pretty aggressive list of Q&A. So maybe we'll swap over that way. Does that make sense, Kyle?
Yep, that sounds great. And so I'm going to go over to the Q&A and run the Q&A, even though I missed most of the presentation. I can often, when I'm feeding up Q&A questions, be like, oh, this came in before you explained that. But if I ask a question that you've already answered, you can say, I've already answered that one, and that'll be fine. So everybody, hop into the Q&A. We've got 34 questions currently, which is great. Feel free to add some more, upvote the ones you like. I'll give you a few seconds, and I'll sort them most popular, least popular, and I'll just read them.
An audiobook with Kyle Jepson.
Brought to you by...
Yeah, sponsored by Admin HUG.
Kyle, I will say that I scanned the questions for board, Gantt, and calendar, and a lot of them are rapid fire questions. If you want, I can go through them.
Sure. Yeah, you mean you just
wanna... I mean, when you get to that, if that's a different way, if you want to do that, I can just go through each of them and give you the quick one-word answer. They're pretty fast.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So our top upvoted question by far margin, no surprise, it came from Joshua Oakes. He always asks our top voted questions. Getting to the things that people really care about. When do we all get the map view?
Funny, you noticed the one visualization type we did not talk about. I love it, Joshua. Put me on the spot. So the map view is currently in a limited private beta, and we are still accepting enrollments. The way to request access is you need to first be enrolled in Flexible CRM Views, which is the release that we just demoed here. And then you also need to have an enterprise subscription. It could be any enterprise product. If you go into the product updates UI, you can request access to the beta. We are making some kind of like critical updates in the, where are we? It's January. We're making some updates next quarter to close some like critical functionality gaps that we want to have in place before we open it up to be a public beta. And that's because right now it just has some rough edges. The biggest one, while I have the audience, so if you're enrolled, you'll know, is that we have a limit of only showing up to 500 records at one time on the map view. As you all know, there is tons of data that exists in a view, and we want to be able to allow you to view more of your data in that visual geographic way. But there are just some limitations on search and like the APIs that we use and the map functionality itself that limit us to 500. So we're going to do some work there next quarter to make it kind of clear the data that you're looking at, be able to increase that limitation, and then we'll be moving it to public beta. Our goal is to try to do that next quarter, but as you all know, roadmaps are flexible, they change, but that is our hope. And then barring, we're going to get more feedback from customers, make more iterations there. But in the meantime, still accepting folks to sign up, so feel free to request access. I try to approve them.
The beta link actually says it's not accepting at the moment. It's grayed out.
Oh, okay.
We
added a new feature for betas where if it hits a max threshold, then it grays out. So that is on me to go in and clean up some of them. Okay, well then we'll reverse that. Next week, you can request access. I will go in and do a little bit of cleanup on my end to be able to make that possible.
Amazing.
And
thanks so much.
Admins, if you want to fill out the feedback form, we'll share that with them. So get you on that list a little bit as well.
Cool. Josh Ames asked, do you have any insight when tasks will become a true object, similar to calls and meetings, so we can add custom properties and report on them more flexibly? Right now, task feels like the gap in the activity model. None of you are probably working on that directly.
I can answer a little bit about that. I work with the tasks team. There actually is an effort underway right now to make tasks a more real object, as people say. This would be like including it in global settings. It has its own page, making it pipelineable, the ability to have different stages for it, and then things like custom properties. So it is something that's being worked on, but I don't know that there's any date we can share with that work yet, but it's something that there's a whole team looking into right now.
Cool. Yeah, I will say, some of you may have noticed last week, I published a LinkedIn post that was like, hey, tell me the things that bother you most about HubSpot. And it has like 250 comments now. I feel like roughly half of them were about tasks not having custom properties. And so I talked to that team and they're like, yeah, we know, we're working on that one. The projects object has forced us to think about tasks in a much more serious and robust way than we have before. And like Zita said, I don't know the timeline for that, but it is like in active development. You're going to see task improvements. That's the thing we know we have to do. So yeah. When creating views for team members, how can I check as a HubSpot CRM admin what they are actually seeing and what might be missing? As an admin, I have full visibility, so it's difficult to understand their perspective. It's a really thoughtful question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to at least get us started, but I'll let my team chime in if they have thoughts. I think that, well, there's probably, what I'm reading is two parts to this question. One is literally, how do I see this? But there's also maybe a bit of a, how do I know it's missing? It's difficult to understand their perspective. On that latter one, I definitely encourage you all to talk with your teams about what they need, in the same way that like we all as product managers talk to our customers about what they need. The only way to really know that is to have conversations and understand like what those gaps are. On the how-to part, I'd say that the best way to do it is probably to, if you are a super admin in your portal, to use the log in as user feature. If you go to like the users and teams and account settings, you can just log in as that user and literally like see what is available. That kind of gives you that functionality. And I say that because we do allow some user level customizations or preferences that can exist on top of a curated view. So you can adjust things like the column ordering, or you'll have, so there's just like sort of a layer there that allows you to really like see what the user sees. All that to say, this is an area that our broader CRM index team is looking at to be able to make it more intuitive, how views save and the data that saves, and much clearer the different layers that exist. So having settings that are applied at the view level by an admin giving permissions to let folks be able to change that or not, and then also having really clear user preferences of what they can or cannot do. So that's an area that our team's kind of in active ideation on. If you have thoughts, ideas, or feedback, I'd love to chat more about it. So find a way to reach out to me, LinkedIn, email. I'm sure Deanna will share out some resources after, but definitely an area that we are wanting to, I think, make a bit clearer.
Yeah, one thing I just want to add there really quick. The only thing with that login user piece that you can sometimes miss, and this is pretty minor, but I've had this confuse a few folks before. There are very rarely in HubSpot a couple preferences. Usually they have to do with like small, like windows being open or closed when you open something. So a perfect example that I want to give of this is when you're in the dashboard, if you open that report viewer screen, whether or not that settings is open when you go log in there. Some of those things are stored kind of like locally on a user's machine when they're like very light preferences. So Lily mentioned we want to kind of make sure that we can like inculcate those preferences as like real things so you can see that setting. So 100% that's like what these things should be. But very rarely on occasion, if you were to go and do that, anything that like if you were to like clear your cache and it looks like it resets for you, those things would not be viewable with that login as user because that's stored locally on someone's machine. Again, very rare, but I've had that confuse a couple folks of like, wait, why when I log in, on this thing am I seeing this settings always be open from the start, where if I go over here, the settings isn't. What we're trying to do is to make your life a little easier. We try to remember some really soft preferences as you're like rolling around through HubSpot. Some of those things are super soft and things we kind of expect to reset over time, and those are just stored locally. So if you ever get caught out by one of those, it could be that case. If it feels like it's a major thing though, that should be that preference also, like that's also super helpful feedback. If you say like Harrison, like whether or not that settings bar should be open, it should be something I can define at a per report level. That's the exact type of question we're like curious about, but sometimes we'll start with those really kind of light preferences as being stored locally, so you wouldn't see those when you log in as another user.
That is so interesting. And I feel it viscerally because I just changed computers a week or so ago. And when I logged into HubSpot, I was shocked at some of the things that didn't carry over. Nothing affected by this team here, but like my social posting, my default channels were all I had to reset. And so for me as a user, it's sort of invisible which ones are like set and really set and which ones are tied to my browser. And so it's
that's what we want to clean up, because it should always be kind of like really set. I'll tell you the one time that we sometimes will default to that just for like a little bit of a window into like the brain of PMs. Sometimes what we're looking for too though is it's really easy if we're like making changes to a space that someone's dismissed, and then we will kind of want that notification to come back at some point. Sometimes we'll use it for a case like that. Like that settings example is a perfect one where like sometimes we're updating those settings, so we want to make sure that every so often that kind of like pops back up for someone. Something like your preferred channel though, like I'd probably say that should be a little bit more of like a hard setting.
I was really surprised. Yeah,
it's super interesting. But yeah, and that's always a piece to say, like if you ever run into that, like PMs are really happy to hear about that. There's a pretty heavy weight towards the decision sometimes of creating these new pieces of storage, because now you need to maintain them for the rest of the life of the product. But at the same time, like our goal is to make sure you all find it really usable. So like never hesitate to be like, hey, like this just really grinds my gears that every time I open this, I have to close this panel again. Like that's such helpful feedback that doesn't always come up in some of our calls.
Cool. Robin asks, am I the only one who would like to see the number of records currently on the views move somewhere else so they are more easily visible?
Ooh,
I assume this is like in the top left corner where it says.
Yeah.
Like,
I uploaded this. I even uploaded this.
Oh, okay, great.
I want to talk about it. Yeah, so definitely a piece of feedback that we have heard with our flexible views release. I'm going to really quickly go back to sharing my screen to talk through it a little bit.
Great.
Let me just now move our platform over here. Okay, so with the legacy, we had the records count up here at the top. And what we heard was that you all use this number a ton, and you will come in and add filters. You'll actually use this to almost like report on your data, if you will. And so we know it's a really important number. And with our first iteration, we added it right at the top in the tab, because you're looking at this data and you're seeing it at the top. And transparently, it doesn't I think, solve for all of the needs that we wanted it to. One of which is visibility. It sometimes is just easily missed because you're just not you might not expect it to be here. But it also kind of looks like a badge, and so you might not know that this is the count. And so one of the things that I thought I would show is a prototype of like a design exploration we have. So I'm giving you all of the PM prefaces of this is just an exploration. It's not shipped product, but I'm sharing it here because I'd actually love to get y'all's feedback in the chat of if this is something that resonates with you. So the idea that we have is, this is a kind of like a zoomed out. Let me get a little bit closer. This is one of our Figmas, just an exploratory mock where we have the count at the bottom left. It's super clear that you're looking at like the contacts in view. And as you change visualization types, so in our legacy version, this is actually only here for the table and not for the board. But as you change visualization types and as you change your filters, in essence, it updates and is accurate to the data that is displayed, whether it's a table or like a board or a calendar. So this is one of the ideas that we're exploring, is having it in the bottom left-hand side. And I'd love to, drop your feedback in the chat. And I'm going to go look at it. But thank you for whoever asked the question, because I love getting on-the-fly feedback.
Amazing. Carla asked, does projects have time tracking? And the answer to that is no. Zita, I don't know if you have additional.
Projects doesn't have time tracking, but it is something that the projects team has heard a lot of feedback about and is exploring as a future opportunity.
Yeah, we had a HUG event on projects a little while ago, and time tracking came up as something that a lot of you want. And so keep telling the product team, keep ringing that bell. That's how things get built. Will there be custom selected reports possible for the report view as well?
Oh, okay. So here's the question. My question to your question is yes, we're 100% thinking about this. The big piece today is we've tried to keep that report, and you saw when I went to go change the properties that were in that like available list, that I said like, okay, to do that, you need to go back to the table to make those changes, right? And so in the way that we've built this, we've intentionally kept those two very much in lockstep. And that's intentional to say like, hey, I wanted this to really be like, hey, I'm looking at this table and I've added a chart, right? Like an Excel end, like you take that table, you work in that table, you kind of massage it, get it right, then like highlight it, add a chart. Intentionally, we wanted to keep those really, really locked together in the space of the CRM. With that being said, that's kind of the big question we have when it comes to like adding custom report. Now, what you may have all seen recently, if you haven't seen this, I know a lot of folks in this crew would love it, is you can now add custom reports onto the record. And so when you do that, you'll see there's usually some like filter options that are available. Like, do you want this report to filter on this record alone? Do you want it to filter on the associations? Or do you want it to filter or just kind of be the report that you saw, like just generalized? And so the big question that we have there is, let's say we wanted to add a custom report. We think that's a really interesting option, and I am very in support of that. But that's the big thing we're trying to understand a little bit more about, is like, if you were to add that, how do you want this like correlation between that table data and that report to work? Do you not want that to be correlated? Is it really just adding that as a view? Like, that's an interesting option, but that's the space that we'd love to know a little bit more about. So 100% something we're thinking through. We've kind of been playing with it internally, but the big open question is like, how do we make sure that relation of data makes the most sense to you? I know there was a question that was in here, and I'll just mention this one while we're talking about it, of like some folks were like, hey, I see like different numbers when I'm looking at that table view in the report view. So one, if you are, I put my email in there. Feel free to email me, because you shouldn't see different numbers if it's the right setup. Sometimes it's like a little hidden like filter that's sitting on there or something like that. And that's our biggest fear, is that like, if you hop over to that and you're like, wait, like, why am I seeing this number on the report and this number on the table? And now someone's confused. I think we all know how painful it is, like someone loses data trust on like something you've set up for them. So that's my big goal, is making sure that's like painfully obvious, those connections. And so I think I'd love to know a little bit more about this, but 100% something we're thinking about and like trundling down that pathway. That's why you saw it just get added to the record as well. So we really want to make sure you can get the data kind of where you want and in the spaces you're working. Hope
that's great. Yeah. Great. Karen asks, when is the association view coming on the roadmap? So excited for that. Is that something we talked about? I was not here. So
That's okay, Kyle. It was. It was something I just teased out as something the team is in development on. So my hope is that we're able to get into a private beta this quarter. But keep an eye on like the product updates UI, like I'll send out a notification when that goes through. But yeah, my goal is to get it into private beta this quarter, pending how quickly my engineers can move and priorities and such. Great.
Just a quick side note here, because it popped in my mind. As any of these product folks are talking about anything, those of you in the audience, feel free to keep chatting in the chat, dropping in your thoughts and feedback. I'm going to export all of this out to them and send it to them when the event is over. So as they float ideas or things, if you have feedback, suggestions, ideas, keep writing them down right up until the end of the event, and they will get all of them. Rich asks, a short description at the top of a view would be a great addition. I often create views for clients for specific tasks, so it would be great to have a quick explainer. I don't know if any discussion is needed there.
I just had a question, like, do some of the like existing paradigms of descriptions, do you find those like useful or too hidden, or like that's a big question in report land, right? We added descriptions like a year and a half ago, I want to say, something like that. So that's like, I know we've added that in. I've got similar feedback in report land of like, can we add those descriptions like to a dashboard? I think I've heard a lot of admins are like, people don't read. So I think that's like universal experience. But where and like how you would like to see that, I think would be a lovely thing to hear about. And like, when we think through things like character limits, like should it be on a hover versus should it be on dashboards right now, the description lives on the little I hover. I've seen some people that really like that because it saves space. I've seen some folks that say they don't hover and they don't read. So like, can we make that like, I think there's a little combo about painfully obvious in the chat. So I think that's one of those big questions that we'd love to know a little bit more about, but I think we've definitely understand like, yeah, being able to put that description and commentary into these spaces can be super, super helpful. So I love that.
That's really interesting to me, Harrison, because dashboards have the ability, you can like put text just in there.
On the dashboard as well. Yeah. Which also, anyone who just thought about that, everyone is right now screaming inside their heads like, man, I wish the formatting of that was better. We 100% agree. We're working on
it. Great. Lily, Zita, did either of you want to say anything about descriptions or should we move on?
No, let's move on. I know Zita mentioned there was like a bunch of questions that came in around Gantt and board. So
yep. So we're getting into those now. Are date dependent changes coming in the Gantt view, i.e. when you move the first task date, the task under that / dependent on that one also change?
Yeah. So this falls in that project team's realm. And this is also something that they have on their radar as a potential future enhancement to Gantt and projects and tasks.
Cool. Spanning into project object questions, can take this offline if needed. Will anticipated subtask dependencies and time estimates also apply to standalone tasks or only those associated to projects?
I don't have a good answer to that. That would be the same team. That's Mark's team, Kyle. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. When will leads be more like the other objects? That is a next week question. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in, but next week's session is all about like getting feature parity across objects, and so
I actually will chime in. Just let you know that the leads team, at least as the pipelines PM, there's a lot of inconsistencies. For example, with how leads work in pipelines compared to all the other objects in global settings. And as part of a recent engineering initiative to create consistency in our product, we did just ship a series of enhancements to the leads pipeline experience to make it more consistent with the other object types. And we are actually in the last phase of that work right now. So there's definitely things happening on this front.
Cool. When will we be able to export data in report view that is summarized?
After we make it so you can have better exports of custom reports. Like it's such a pain point. But no, this is like super helpful. Yeah, this is 100% something that we're like looking at. I think sorry if like my always response to these is like more questions. So please email all of us. Like we like want nothing more than to chat with y'all. But the big piece here that I'd love to know more about is like some of the formatting you'd like to see in that, because 100% we've seen this idea a ton and we want to dive down that pathway on our export improvement journey. Right now there's a thing about like you can't have recurring exports of custom reports. That sucks, and literally in the KB article it says we're going to fix it and it's not fixed yet. So we're like working on that. After that, this is like a big item. I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of the ways you'd like to see that. I know there's the basic version, like just show me the table, Harrison. How about that? We could do that. But I'd like to know a little bit more about like how we can make exports a bit better. So I'd love to chat, but it's on the list of things that we're working on with exports.
Cool. Is there a way to switch lifecycle stage out for another property on the contact board view? The answer to that is yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
there. You can just, I mean, I can show it right now, but if you go to
Show it real
contacts,
quick. I don't know if this was covered in a demo earlier because it came in 7 minutes after the event started. So
if you go to contacts and you go to board view and you click settings and you click down here are the properties for contacts. Same thing for companies, right? So it just redrew. And for the person who asked the question about where you change grouping, it's under settings here on the right panel for any object type.
Amazing. Thank you. Will there be start and end dates in calendar view for projects?
Yeah, I can answer that too. We have that on our enhancements we'd like to do in 2026, both calendar view giving you the ability to have, sorry, wrong one. Calendar view giving you the ability in this right panel to specify what column to use as your start date and end date for multi-day events. Same thing on Gantt view, actually letting you in Gantt view pick which two, sorry, this object doesn't have Gantt, but which two date properties you would use on Gantt to draw the bars. Right now, we always use like create and close, but that customizability is also on our radar.
Cool. As an extension of Gantt view, will there be a filter along the lines of will not be open / active on X date?
Is that like task status? Like, will it be open on X date?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Connor, if you're still here, or any of the 3 people who upvoted it, if you want to chime in the chat, give us some details. Zita, can you again show us how to change the board view into something other than deal stage? You just did that, so I'll mark that as responded to. Let's see. Any chance we could also see sum and counts by columns? I don't know if that's on my board view.
No, that's you. Here.
I'm going to guess that it's for the table specifically, because we do have that available on the board. And it's something that we have considered. I don't have anything like immediate on the roadmap for it per se, but I did show like the column insights feature earlier in the demo, which is one way to access sort of like a summary of that data. So definitely curious if folks are using the column insights in that way, but something that we have kind of in consideration, but nothing immediate planned.
Great. We are maybe halfway through the questions and we have about 2 minutes left. So I think here we will transition to, thank you everyone for participating. Again, I will export all these out, share them with this team here. Your questions are valuable, even if we are unable to answer them live right here. So we really appreciate you sharing those. Harrison, Zita, Lily, thanks so much for being here. I think you have at various moments already answered this, but if people want to connect with you, discuss with you things after this event, what's your preferred method for them to do that?
Yeah, I just Deanna dropped our emails in the chat.
Oh, yep, there they are.
Yeah, email's the best. I know I also said LinkedIn. I'm historically like, I go on it, but I'm not great, so I definitely prefer email.
Either one.
Great.
Yeah, definitely please reach out via email if you have any feedback you want to share.
And then last thing I just want to say, HubSpot generally right now, we're really, really trying to nail down some of these like quality of life things. I hope that came through in what we've talked about today is like a lot of this is these small quality of life things these hide really easily. And the hardest thing is, as PMs, we spend all day using this. We get really, really used to these patterns. And so there's stuff that's kind of invisible to us. So please, in that feedback, do not hesitate to share those small quality of life things. I know it's something that you're like, this only takes me half a second every time, but like, I would love to remove that half a second so that it's a little faster. It's a big thing for us. We're zeroed in right now. So if you have any feedback to that, like, please, please, please let us know. Tell us where those spots are. I know I saw like a Q&A. I'm like, hey, this is taking like a really long time to load. Those are legitimate problems. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us as PMs. Like, all of these little things are stuff we care about, and HubSpot as a whole is really trying to zero in on this right now. So I would love to hear any and all feedback in that space.
Amazing. Thanks, team. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Have a great Tuesday. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Stay.
Welcome to the Admin HUG. No flash, just facts and a whole lot of love. Get it done. Accidental or all in by choice. Admin and flies and lift their voice. Fixing fields and hacking time. Making magic with no headline. Power drops gold. Tiana brings fire in a crew that's here to lift you higher. We swap the wins and share the pain. No one's solo in this game. It's the Admin HUG, where legends log in. From chaos to clarity, that's how we win. Dirty data challenge accepted. Portal perfection fully connected. Quick fix queens, workaround kings, custom coded everything. Tabs open, coffee strong. You've been solving all along. We've got the know-how, we've got the map. Even HubSpot protocols up to chat. You're not just heard, you help shape the tools. Admins rewriting all the rules. Thanks for building with the HUG. Thanks for powering the hub. Behind every campaign, push and nudge.